wait. We're live, by the way. What I just heard was Matt Charney is going to do the dance. That's what I just heard.
Wow. I told him in Stealing Partners dance, he might indeed.
Well,
I definitely need to be there because I'm going to record that.
I am clearing my calendar. I am flying in. You have just changed my entire October. That's it. That's Nashville for anybody who wants to watch Matt dance. Is that what's going on?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
I can't wait. Well, I don't know if we'll have it.
I may be willing as well, so we'll see.
Do we get a tribal headdress for Jerry? He needs a hat of some sort, and I think that
you have to earn the headdress.
See, yeah, I'm willing to do that, but it could take some time.
Yeah, well, he'll put in the work, I assure you.
Yeah. And of course, you're always festive in your hats already. We don't want to take away from that. Just bring your own.
Okay, fair.
Oh, Rob, she's good. She's real good. All right, you guys ready to start?
We are ready.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
All right, everybody. Hello from the basement of Career Crossroads. Okay, if you're watching, you can see we're not in the basement, but we are dialed in on behalf of the CXR community. This is, for those who don't know, a nearly 30-year-old community of TA professionals from literally around the world who work at organizations that hire an average of between 2,000 to 200,000 people a year each. Now, at CXR, we connect those members, and we're at over 5,000 leaders and practitioners. We connect them every single week in our forums, online workshops, virtual roundtables, live meetings, leadership summits, all kinds of good stuff. Now, in fact, we've got a leadership meeting coming up here in Chicago, Illinois in just a few weeks. If you're interested in checking out those details and what we have in store, I think we got a wellness program on the agenda, coaching discussions. We have a labor market economist that's coming in, some show and tell from some pretty impressive brands, that kind of thing. You can find more at cxr.works/events. If you hang out till the end and you know you want to, I'll walk you through that page. Today's show is actually streaming live on Vimeo, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, cxr.works/podcast, where you can also find an entire archive of our show and those transcripts and search and sift through those. Now, additionally, you'll see what's ahead after today's show. And of course, you can get those calendars blocked accordingly so you can dial in and join live. Now, one of the benefits of joining us live is our chat. So please don't be shy. If you've got any questions or comments about the show and you're here with us live today, just add it to the chat. We'll call you out. We'll get you included in the show. Now, you can also use that chat as a great way to drop in your LinkedIn profile to connect with our guests and other listeners. So settle in, crank up that treadmill or top off that coffee, because for the next 20 minutes, we're going to be chatting about an interesting topic and challenging area of recruiting in our space, high volume, and some of the lessons learned and some of the innovations seen over the last few challenging years. Now, who better to chat with us but our industry friends and CXR members, head of recruiting for America's third largest Native American tribe, Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and a member of his team and the main ingredient to his secret sauce of recruiting success, his director of staffing at Choctaw Nation. With that, why don't you please welcome Rob Dromgoole. And there you go, Amber Caldwell. How are you guys?
Hi.
Hi, and I think you called that out right. She's definitely the secret ingredient for making
secret sauce to the sex. Well, we've got
not have a discussion about high volume recruiting and not include this amazing talent leader, because none of this would have happened if it wasn't for her team and what she's done.
I love it. I love the accolades. Okay, so we have another secret sauce of success here. Also joining us today is Mr. Crispin. Hello, Jerry.
Good morning, sir. We always love to have Jerry and Chris. I know we've been CXR members. I want to say I think I've been a member for like 20 years at least.
Wow.
So it's always
quite likely
to talk with both of you.
Well, it's good. So, let's do this really quick before we jump in. I'm going to ask that Rob, you and Amber each give sort of what we'd like to call an escalator pitch over who each of you are. And I think we start with Amber, and she can sort of give us a quick introduction. So Amber, just give us kind of like a who is Amber? Where does Amber come from? Why should we be listening to Amber today? And then you can just pass the baton over to Rob. How's that?
Okay. So my name is Amber Caldwell. As you said, I'm the director of staffing here at the Durant Casino and IT. I started in the casino and I've worked for Choctaw Nation for over 10 years. I am a tribal member and everything I know has been high volume up until Rob came to be our senior director, and he's really introduced more of our sourcing, headhunting type positions.
Okay. And Rob, how about yourself?
So my name's Rob Dromgoole. I've been recruiting for about 26, 27 years. Predominantly, I got an MBA in business, Army veteran, and my specialty throughout most of my career has been kind of the sniping or how to fill kind of the hard to fill positions. Mm-hmm. And so in pairing with someone like Amber, who is an expert in high volume, our disparity and diversity of backgrounds has really paired well. And we have a team of roughly 40 plus recruiters right now. And the end of the fiscal year is in a few days. And we've already had about 8,000 hires and 11,000 offers. And so we've had a good year.
Wow, that's no joke. Well, Rob, thanks for your service. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
So look, you two have talked a little bit about like sort of looting. We're going to talk high volume, but let me ask you, I want to, because I think, and I mentioned this, I think in the green room earlier, I think that there were a couple of topics of recruiting that really floated to the top in regards to public discussions or regards to, real focus of attention. I think, college recruiting was one of those as an easy example, right? But I think high volume, while high volume didn't necessarily stop for a lot of us, for some of us, it got even more crazy during the pandemic. So I think that it warrants a little bit of a spotlight. And I would love to hear what each of you kind of feel like is your biggest lesson learned of really pushing an increase in volume through a pandemic like we have the last couple of years. Like what would you say your big takeaways were over the last?
Let me set the stage for Amber, and she can fill in as much of the details as we want. But keep in mind, for us, one of our recruiting managers, Carissa in IT, she might be watching, she has locked on a date of when the pandemic started, which I think was on March 18th, was the actual date where we closed our casino doors for the first time. And I believe we were only closed for a few months. In May, we opened everything up again. So a lot of the work world was completely shut down and everyone was working from home. Whereas our tribe made the leadership decision where we were going to open up our 23 casinos and 3 resorts back up to the world a short 2.5 months later. Mm-hmm. So that recruiting burden fell on Amber here, as well as Tanya for our remote regions, Tanya Ibsen, and they did a bang up job. So, I mean, how would you answer that question?
Yeah. So I think, Chris, you're exactly right. All of the focus was put on virtual and all the different ways to adapt when working from home and things like that. But everything we were doing was still in person. So one of the things we really had to learn to communicate, which we've never had to before, was what precautions we were taking, what was in it for them, which is always top of mind when you're doing high volume recruiting. And really everything was trying to sell us virtual job fairs, virtual, pretty much everything. And we just had to put a lot of effort into making sure that we executed things as safely as possible, but we still had in-person job fairs through the pandemic. We would keep everything distance. We had to have extra people there to, wipe everything down, sanitize it in between candidates. But people still wanted to be out and wanted to be around others. So they were actually huge successes for us.
And what we found just from a high level business perspective, since places like Las Vegas were shut down, they basically flocked to our casinos and resorts. So for them, they actually had record revenue and profits.
Well, that was my question for you, Rob. Like that push to almost stay open is almost a differentiator for you at that time, right? For people still looking to work, still looking to meet in person.
We, from an employment standpoint, and we don't talk about it a lot because I think the Choctaw culture kind of by nature is very humble, but they made the decision not to lay a single person off. And they paid, our housekeepers or cooks for about the 2 months where we were shut down. everyone still got paid, everyone still got their full money, and which was great because when they decided to open the doors, everyone was still there, and we didn't lose that many. There wasn't a huge, I mean, there was some, but I don't think we lost a huge percentage of workers due to a fear of wanting to come back. I think
No, it was primarily, if they wasn't able to get their kids in a daycare, or school wasn't back in session, things like that were more of a factor than them just not wanting to return.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And,
go ahead. No.
I was going to say, when they did decide to keep everyone paid, we have a lot of tipped positions, and they made the decision to pay them more than their base rate because their base rate is lower because they receive tips. But when we were closed, they made the decision to pay them a higher hourly wage and then help them also file for any supplemental unemployment if they weren't up to what they were receiving before.
And Amber, I would imagine that is something that in your communications or in the marketing of those roles, you really, really amp up the messaging around.
Yes. Yes, I definitely think that, especially in these entry-level roles, people are looking for stability. They need something that can support their lives, that they can count on, and that's what we can offer. And that's definitely a huge selling point for us.
And how is that looking now as we're coming out of, right, this pandemic piece? I mean, are you shifting your messaging a little bit, or is it more of the same for you guys?
I think that's a fair question. I would say for us, the pandemic was only like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And we've been in operation.
Not fair.
So we've been kind of going full bore, but we are seeing some market changes. High volume for us, in my opinion, at least the data that I see, is still our largest pain point. Mm-hmm. So despite the talk at a big level about a pending recession or macroeconomic waves, for us, it's still a very tight labor market, mm-hmm. and we are struggling to fill the high volume positions. I mean, it's still full bore go.
But it is interesting, and I think our message has shifted some to a lot of candidates, and it seems crazy, but it's almost like pandemic is so far in the past, even though it really isn't. So that selling that point of everyone's kept, where she's still being paid and still guaranteed their position when they came back is almost not as big of a selling point in this moment as it was previously.
Yeah, the candidates today are more, what we're fighting. Like a challenge that we've had that I've seen a recent shift is we've had candidates that would previously might be open to commuting, say, mm-hmm. 30 or 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And because the cost of gas is rising, as an example, they're like, well, it's not worth it for me to commute that far because of, as an example.
Yeah, that uniquely you're in a, I don't want to say isolated, but you are out not in an urban area. When I look at your pictures that you post, I mean, they're beautiful and they are fabulous. And I think they actually are the kind of thing that attract and engage people who don't want to be in an urban environment. Mm-hmm. But it's also, some of your success is also dependent upon your ability to bring your customers in. And obviously throughout all of this, you've still had a steady flow of your customers coming in, because otherwise you wouldn't need all those people to serve them.
No, and I want to say a kudos and shout out to anyone in our marketing. They partner with some of our, like TRG as an example. I know there's probably others, but they have done a fantastic job of marketing and selling our consumer brand to like the Dallas communities or Fort Smith in Arkansas. And they are world class at getting our consumer brand out to the people who want to come to the casinos. And that consumer branding has certainly helped. We've been the beneficiaries of that on the recruiting front. So we are very grateful for their success.
Yeah, it seems to me, Rob, you'd almost describe your target hiring demographic as hypersensitive to like political and economical environments.
I don't know. So what do you say for high volume? Because I mean, for us, the high volume is our, and Amber, correct me if I'm wrong here, but they're just looking at how much you going to pay me by the hour.
Yeah,
And what
price
when I work
again.
my shift,
Yep.
you know, what benefits am I going to get? I don't know that they're thinking that deep.
Well, and that becomes a difficult conversation for anyone that's trying to make changes at their company, to get the people with the ability to make those decisions to understand the mindset of they just want a job that they can live off of and be happy to go to, and what other benefits can they receive from it, and that's really all it boils down to.
And one of the things that Amber taught me that I did not know, for example, and some of you in recruiting land might not know this either, Indeed still has the #1 market share for a job board, but their #1 search parameter is not job titles. Candidates' primary search is they go into the field and they just search on what jobs are open in that community, and that's it. They're not searching by job title. That's the primary search. So those entry level are literally just sorting the jobs by how much they pay.
Give me work.
And that's how they apply.
Yeah.
So that
Or
it's a
full-time, part-time, really schedule things like that are really what make the difference to what job they're going to apply for.
Well,
Yeah,
so
I
you
found
mentioned, yeah, and Rob, you mentioned Indeed. So
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about the tech stack that Choctaw Nation uses for high volume. Did that change at all during the pandemic? Was there something
Well,
new
it's changing
here?
now. I tell you that with some recent Indeed changes. But at the time, where we leveraged a combination of Indeed sponsored jobs. We have a company called Callfire/Easy Text, which people might be familiar with, that we used. And at the time, also Facebook Jobs was operational. But we are starting to see some shifts in the marketplace. Indeed has made some strategic decisions that we have to kind of rethink how we're going to recruit high volume wise, which we're in the process of working out. But what tools did I miss on that? Indeed,
Taru,
Facebook, Taru,
text
sorry.
to apply.
Text to apply.
And text to apply is driven through Indeed currently. And with Indeed, we had a resume search and sponsored jobs. Because high volume, it takes so much legwork. Because typically, with the resume search, when you message someone, it messages them through email, from Indeed to an email. And I would say a lot of people will sign up with an email they never check or they no longer have access to. So you really got to put the numbers out to actually get a response that's going to hit your targets in hiring.
And Amber, was texting new for Choctaw?
Yes.
Yes.
So we used to have you'd have your cell phone and you could text one by one. But when you're doing high volume, you really need to have the ability to do mass texting. So that's why we started using Easy Text. You can do it from your computer. You can upload a spreadsheet and text everybody all at once, or you can have one-off conversations. So it really gave some flexibility. And we also started using Calendly so that, you're cut and dry, they're qualified, they're rehireable, or they've never worked for us before, that you can go ahead and set up. We can send them a link with multiple options and they can schedule their own interview. And it really saved time because, like I said, it is a lot of legwork from one hire to you have to double that, and it just keeps going to where your original pool of applicants that you're reaching out to is just huge.
And what I will say is one of the things that Amber taught me. So as a old timer headhunter, I was always like, hey, pick up the phone and cold call or do InMail or do email. What we found, these high volume candidates they don't answer the phone.
Nope.
And a lot of them don't have email. And really the only tool that worked was texting. I mean, that's how they communicate. They don't want to answer their phone. And what's email? Who uses email?
I would actually argue that even more of high volume, or not high volume, hard to fill or high level positions now prefer a text to start the conversation as well. We hire a lot of chefs and they're always working, always back of house. So calling them while they're working, it's hit or miss. And if you send them a text, you might get a response at 3 a.m., but you got a response. And then you can set up when to actually dive into that conversation from there.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen for at least a decade now, really, the emergence of mobile and mainstream of texting for candidates. And so it's wonderful to see some organizations like Choctaw Nation be able to pick that up and really hit the ground running with it. Was it an easy thing to adopt? I mean, how many of your recruiters are sitting there doing the texting to the candidates?
I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but I want to say we've sent almost 60,000 text messages this fiscal year when it's all said and done. So, and that 60,000 has netted us, say, 11,000 offers. And then we had about 8,000 hires. So even though we offered 11,000, only 8,000 of those showed up, right? We lost whatever that percentage is, maybe it was some percent.
But that open rate, Rob, and that response
it's a ghost rate, right? So
I mean, just the funnel of that's crazy compared to like old school email.
And consider now, and Jerry mentioned this, we are in a candidate scarce environment. So we are not, Dallas is an hour and a half away. The entire state of Oklahoma has only 4 million people who live in it, right? So the town that our largest resort is based in only has about 20,000 population.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to reach as many people as we can.
You have to engage them to want to come there. Obviously, if they haven't been there, and perhaps many of them have been as customers in some way, shape, or form.
Not as many customers, but sometimes. Yeah, sometimes they're going to come and maybe watch a concert. Maybe they're going to see.
So have you? I'm really curious. Have you started to look at the 3,000 that didn't show up?
That's a good question. What do you think? So we talked about what makes up those 3,000, right? Because we offered them, they didn't come. Now, some of them didn't pass background, but what were some of the other things?
Yeah, so we have a few reasons why, because ghosting is only one of the reasons. It could be that they failed their drug screen, that they failed their background. Things like that can also be the difference of an offer to a hire. But a good chunk of it is truly they just didn't show up. And part of that is going to be your timing. Are you pushing them out a week before they come in to do paperwork? By then, they've already started somewhere else. You have to move very quickly. And we actually have started to look into it and do a report on what step they're falling out of. Because, is it they did their paperwork and they didn't go to their first day, or did they accept and never show up to paperwork, things like that. And then also, what distance did they live from the casino, and what positions are primarily falling out. So then we can kind of determine, is it a trend because they live too far away? Is it a trend with this particular department and maybe they're not offering to the right people? So we can talk to them about, what their target demographic for that candidate really is.
And one of the things
I love it.
One of the things that Amber did that really reduced our ghosting rate is on our job fairs, what we started doing was actually offering on the spot. So they would interview with the hiring manager or even with the recruiter, and her recruiters we would even have someone positioned at the door where we wouldn't let the people exit the event center unless we wanted to ensure that they had an offer or had a chance to interview. So we almost have intercepting, like, no, don't leave. Did you interview? Did you get an offer? So she would literally offer the people there on the spot. And the only restriction we had is just our onboarding limitations.
So the no-show, the ghosting and the no-show, I know that's a big issue for a lot of people, right? As we went through the height of the pandemic, and a lot of people complaining about that element of recruiting. And I don't mean to take away from it, but having done high volume in really rural areas, there's an element of boomerang talent. So folks coming back, did you have a strategy, Rob and Amber, around boomerangs, or how you handled boomerangs that were coming back to apply again?
Well, a good chunk of our candidates who apply have indeed worked for us before. So I don't know what do you think the percentage is offhand?
I actually don't know the percentage offhand, but it is pretty high that someone that's worked for us before will come back to us, which I do think speaks to us as an organization that they want to come back. But also, we do have those kind of repeat offenders that they continually leave and want to come back. So every time we have a rehire, we check, make sure that their termination was all on good terms, or it wasn't anything serious. Make sure it's someone that we want to bring back to the organization. And we've started just informing our hiring managers. If they've worked for us twice before, we let the hiring manager know so they can have that conversation. Okay, so you worked for us twice, 2 months at a time each time. What's different about this? What do I need to do to make you stay, or what's changed in your life to make you want to commit to this? And we just have that real conversation and, kind of let each hiring manager make the decision from there.
I think being ready for that's pretty powerful.
I love the transparency of that.
Yeah,
For
and
the
the hourly workforce have choices, right? So if they have a couple of bad days, they can literally go find something very easily. And we find even for things like tax season, what we've seen during tax season is someone gets their tax return and they're going to decide that, you know what, I got a nice tax return from the IRS. I'm not going to work for a few weeks. So they'll quit, and then the tax money will run out, and then they'll come back. And I mean,
Rob, mine's always the opposite. Tax season comes around and I panic I'm not working enough.
yeah, well, we're blessed with abundance. So it's the work. Volume workforce is a very different workforce.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's in that, but we desperately need them. Our operations would not be successful without them, the backbone of all of our casinos and resorts. And we're always striving for ways to look at how can we better retain that talent. And HR, to HR's credit, I want to give them a shout out because they've worked with us and partnering with our managers and doing nominal groups. I mean, Amber and I were part of like talking with a collection of our housekeepers and trying to understand why they might look for other employment. And one of the findings was we didn't have enough cleaning supplies and our vacuum cleaners were broken.
Interesting.
And so we were like, you mean to tell me that if you had more access to cleaning supplies and vacuum cleaners that work, that you'd be more inclined to stay? Oh, absolutely. That's all I need. I just want a vacuum cleaner that works.
Yeah, getting the root of it right there.
Yeah. So, but HR helped us to do those types of nominal groups with the various employee populations.
Rob, I will tell you, in my roughly 30 years of doing this, I have never seen such a guide on. I mean, I've never seen anybody really carry the flag for their organization and their teams the way that we see you do it.
Oh,
you were always championing your team.
Absolutely.
You were always making sure that they get full visibility. I just think it speaks volumes to your leadership style.
Well, thank you. And I got to be honest with you. One of the reasons why I like partnering with Amber is, and I asked her some candid feedback and what she thought I could do better. And she's just like, wow, I think you need to get out there to the people more. And because what we're about, all the money that we make goes back to fund tribal services. And even we opened up this conversation with talking about our recruiting leadership team or tribal members dancing at the HR.com event. Everything that we do here is about giving back to the tribe and to enable the tribe's success. So all the money that our casinos make, it pays for the police force, it pays for tribal housing, it pays for food, it pays for the 9 healthcare clinics. And I mean, there's so many things. And to have the honor of being, even though I am not a tribal member, however, about 70% of our recruiting team is. Chief has told me personally, he's like, Rob, we want to find people who are Choctaw in spirit. I press that right. Okay. I speak the language horribly, but to just they make me feel part of the family. So I try to be Choctaw in spirit and to be able to just enable the tribe's success in some small way. I feel like we're servant leaders. So I love watching, people like Amber just get out of her way and give her the tools and the budget she needs. And
cool.
But it certainly shows. Yeah, it certainly shows. Look, I we're getting ready to wrap up. I do want to, let's draw a little more. Let's come back to full circle to the Matt Charney dance. Talk to me about October 10th. You're going to be in Nashville for those who
October 5th.
Oh, it's 5th. Sorry, October 5th.
We are going to be at the HR.com Nashville event, and HR.com was kind enough to offer free registration if our tribal member recruiters would perform. So we are going to have 7 tribal members pair with our cultural dance team, and they're going to be in full regalia, jewelry, hats, the works, and we're going to perform. Not we, the tribe's going to perform.
I got excited. I was like, Matt and Rob are dancing.
No, I'm not going to appropriate the Choctaw culture. But it'll be an opportunity for the tribal members to showcase the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma culture to the world. And it also gave the opportunity for our recruiting leaders some of them for the first time, to put on traditional regalia and to get in touch with their culture more. So it was kind of a win-win. So
I love it.
But
I assume
how Matt will be involved, if I can find him, is Choctaw Nation is one of the few tribes that allow non-tribal members to participate in their social dances. So one of the dances we'll be performing is the Stealing Partners dance. where it starts out stealing other dancers, and it ends up with us stealing people from the crowd to participate, as long as, the environment allows it. We're not jumping up and off of stages, but so that we can get them involved and they can participate in our social dances.
And some of the recruiting leaders, since they got volunteered for this, I've been told that I probably will get recruited. Highly likely that I'll be stolen.
You're getting voluntold. That's what's happening. You're getting included.
He does that a lot.
Yeah.
But it's all good things.
Good.
All right.
Very good.
We have fun.
So
It's
look,
hard work.
here's how we typically wrap up the show. I ask the guest if they were going to write a book about this topic. What would the title of that book be? Now, Rob and Amber, you have co-authored this book together. What are the two of you going to title the book, and why?
The first thing that comes to mind, and Amber, I'll let her give her answer, is face-to-face works. I don't know. I mean, I just think for us, we have to meet them. We're serving our customers, they have to be on site. The job fairs work for us, but I don't know what else I would call it.
I would lean more towards the art of effective hustling.
There you go. Hers is way better. Great with that. Sold. The art of effective hustling. Because,
ladies and gentlemen, we see once again why she's here today. So the art of effective hustling.
Much better at branding than I am. And Tammy Impson with our remote teams, the managers on our teams, Sarah, Jesse, JC, Casey, Kristen, we would never be successful without them.
Okay, so Amber, you got the name. Who gets the first signed copy of your book?
Well, of course, both of you.
Yeah.
Jerry, that's twice, 2 shows in a row. We get the
Ah! See, together we're better. She's much more effective at this than I am.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Anything we should know? Anywhere you want to send any of the listeners as we kind of as we wrap up here today?
Now, we just invite both of you to connect with us on LinkedIn if you want to learn in more detail. And of course, you're welcome to any of our casinos and resorts. We'd love to have you. I think the Judds are playing here in October soon. We've got other high-end bands, that come on through here. Is it a 4-star resort, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She fills it all. 4,000 employees out there.
Can't go wrong with that.
Well, and I'd like to add, if you are a leader of a talent acquisition for high volume, put some effort into keeping your team uplifted and beat up. If you've got that many people ghosting all of your hard work and then it feels like very minimal results, you've got to keep them motivated and feeling appreciated.
Yeah, she's not wrong. All right, Rob, Amber, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you making time to join us. We're super appreciative of that. I'm going to put you in the green room. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk just a little bit. You can hang out in there with Jerry. How's that?
Oh, sounds good to me.
All right, I'll put you both in there. Hang on one second. I just want to share a screen with a couple of folks here. If you're still hanging in there with us as we wrap up, just a reminder, I'm walking you through it. If it's on, if you're watching us on video, you can see it. This is cxr.work/events. You can see what's up. There's Rob's pretty face. That's today's podcast, obviously. We've got upcoming, I'm just going to walk you through the remainder, or coming up October, we've got our Q3 community meeting for EMEA that is right around the corner. We're also doing a +1. You don't have to steal your partner, just bring a partner. So even if they're not a CXR member, we're opening that up to you, so you can do that. Again, it is our Q3 meeting, and I'll scroll down a little bit. You can see that's September 28th, so that's right around the corner. Next week, interestingly enough, on the podcast show, we've got Ryan Batty. He is from Indeed, and we're going to talk about pay transparency. We got a lot of leaders who are asking, why are our jobs showing pay ranges that aren't our pay ranges? And Ryan's going to come in here and talk a little bit about that with us and why transparency is important there. We got a fall leadership meeting I mentioned earlier coming up October 10th. That is going to be in Chicago, so check that out if you are ahead of talent acquisition. And then on a following podcast on October 11th, we got some folks who have come from big TA organizations, and they've moved into startup organizations, a whole new set of TA leadership muscles, and they're going to talk about what that looks and feels like to them, moving from big organizations, for instance, like Nike, down to organizations that maybe have 2 recruiters on their team, and they're going to share how that's different and challenging. And then we're welcoming back on October 20th, Kat Kibben. KK is going to come on in and talk to you about what to do when candidates won't apply to your jobs, and that's a workshop coming up. And then lastly, for October, or lastly on this, we've got a couple things that'll get added between now and then. But at the end of October, just before Halloween, we're going to talk about keys to optimizing your mind in our monthly lecture series. And we're excited about that. Neuroscience keys for optimized performance. You're not going to want to miss that. And with that, I just want to tell everybody thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next week where, well, gosh, we're just going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. So until then, join us and we'll see you online at cxr.works.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram at careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.